Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It is FPC Radio Live. It's Thursday, March 23rd, 2023. And look, last time we were on the air was the afternoon prior to the World Baseball Classic final. And John, we got exactly what we wanted. Shohei Ohtani versus Mike Trout, with the game on the line in the bottom of the ninth. And look, I said it before. I'm not as invested in baseball as some, but the ratings don't lie. The interest, the excitement doesn't lie, and the reaction from the players and all that doesn't lie. The World Baseball Classic was a resounding success, and I think certainly good for baseball, and hopefully something that can help this sport. And maybe that momentum can carry over for this upcoming season in Major League Baseball and help get baseball back on track.
I think baseball does have a lot of momentum, obviously, with the pitch clock and some of the rule changes with no more shifts. The games are being played about a half hour quicker than they have in the past, so the pacing is better. I think that's a good thing for baseball. This certainly helped, and especially in terms of a worldwide audience. I mean, 75% of adults were watching this game in Japan when it took place. And we know, I'm sure, the ratings in Mexico and Cuba and all Puerto Rico and Venezuela, all those contending countries were really, really high. And I think it was good in the United States as well. And it was fortunate because they played the final on a Tuesday night, so they weren't competing with March Madness, which, resumes tonight. So that's a good thing. It almost feels like it was scripted. Ohtani against Trout, the two best players in baseball who are teammates in Major League Baseball, and yet can't quite qualify for the postseason, which is
a travesty.
But it really is. I mean, in any other sport, especially like basketball, I mean, if you took Giannis and Kevin Durant or whoever and put them on the same team, start fitting with the championship rings. In baseball, it's always been different, though, because as much as it's an individual sport, you do rely on your teammates so much because Mike Trout gets up as often as the ninth hitter, essentially, in his own lineup, and you can pitch around these guys. But great confrontation. Ohtani truly is a unicorn. He's a unicorn among unicorns. To be that good as a pitcher and that good as a hitter, it almost felt like Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens had a baby. And here's Shohei Ohtani.
Named him Babe Ruth.
Named him Babe Ruth, yeah. And he's doing it at the same time. I mean, Dave started hitting home runs when he was pitching, and then he, segued into being a hitter. And no, I'm old. I didn't see him play. But, yeah, this guy is just, he's going to get $50 million a year next year in free agency, or whatever Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, wants to write out for a check, because I think he's going to target him because it's just a massive star and a great player.
Every single big market team, I don't care who you are, should be rushing to give this guy whatever he wants. And I don't want to hear, budget this or luxury tax that. If you're the Yankees, if you're the Mets, if you're the Red Sox, if you're one of those big market teams, well, guess what? You're throwing everything you possibly can to get this guy, because you're right. He is a unicorn. And again, this isn't like just, Mike Trout's a great player. No doubt about it. Would you pursue him as a free agent? Absolutely. But there's just another level to this. Like more so than Mike Trout. And we obviously, I think, are on the same page when people say he's like the greatest baseball player ever. We kind of sit there and we're like, not really. Like, I mean, he's great, but like those are your advanced metrics guys, that just live and die by those numbers and will swear by wins over replacement, above replacement, and all that stuff. But you're not there. There's a limit. I think you go with Mike Trout if, say, you're the Red Sox or if you're whoever, but you don't cap yourself going after Ohtani. Like you sign this guy, and again, this guy will have a major impact on any team but the Angels, apparently, because the Angels are just a barren wasteland of great talent that does nothing. And unfortunately, it's been like that for a very long time. This isn't a new thing. So if you're, like I said, if you're a big market team, yeah, you do everything you possibly can to go out there and give him as much money as humanly possible and hope that he chooses your team to play with.
He's two elite players.
Yeah.
Just think about that. So if you had an ace pitcher and, a top 5 or top 10 hitter on the open market, those two players would each command in excess of $30 million, right? I mean, he's not the best pitcher in baseball, but he's certainly one of the 10 best starters in baseball. Is he the best hitter in baseball? Probably not, but he's one of the 10 best weapons in baseball as an offensive player. So, yeah, he's 2 top 10 players. So, yeah, $50-60 million to me seems to be where he's going to be at. Not to mention the draw, the TV ratings, because, look, baseball's huge on TV ratings locally, right? So if you're the Red Sox and the ratings are down at Nesson, you bring this guy in, he's going to bump them up, even if it's 2 percentage points, that's worth it, right? He's going to add more revenue to your ballpark. You're going to sell out every time. He plays a lot too. It's like having Pedro as a pitcher and a hitter.
Well,
it's like
you're
think of the dollars and cents.
You're getting the Japanese audience too. Because,
Absolutely.
I mean, the guy's a national hero, and rightfully so. I mean, he is beloved over there because, again, I mean, there's this, and it's silly because, again, this is kind of the, the moments where, us here over in North America, we kind of, United States in particular, we kind of, have this, center of the universe type mentality where it's like, we, and look, there's a lot of, they obviously have a lot of the best league. I mean, the NHL is the best league in the world, and that's North American based in hockey. There's a lot of validity to I guess, the overconfidence, but there's also a misconception about baseball overseas, and especially in Japan. And I mean, you're talking about a guy like there is an American-born player or North American-born player that's even close to doing what Shohei Ohtani does, and I think that's one of the big reasons why, obviously, folks over in Japan are going to champion him, and rightfully so. I mean, he's an easy guy to root for. He seems incredibly humble. You know what I mean? He seems like, just a great leader inside the locker room. And again, a massive amount of talent that shows up not only at the plate, but pitching. And it's really incredible.
I wonder what the market's going to be. Obviously, if we're talking $50-60 million, the big market teams are going to be the ones that are most interested in Shohei Ohtani. Reports are that he wants to remain on the West Coast because it's closer to his homeland.
Yeah.
So that would lead you to believe the Dodgers, the Padres, who apparently have like a Russian oligarch as their owner because they just spend more than they make.
They went from a small market team to the Yankees overnight. Like, what the hell happened there?
Like they blinked, woke up, and next thing you know, they're handing out contracts like candy. Another team that I think could jump into this because they're always kind of on the periphery of signing big players as the Giants.
Yeah.
Because they were in on Aaron Judge and bid a lot for Aaron Judge, but he decided to stay in New York. So San Francisco, San Diego, the Dodgers would be the 3 places. The Angels, there's this weird thing going on with them where they're maybe being sold. So I don't know who comes in and buys them. I mean, does Steve Ballmer decide to buy the Angels and offer $1 billion contract?
Look, I think Ohtani wants to win too, and
sure,
again, I mean, this isn't a recent development with the Angels. This team has vastly underperformed relative to the talent that they've had. We talk. I mean, how many big name players did they come through and sign to big deals, from Albert Pujols to former Texas Ranger. He had a lot of problems, drug problems, but was able to kind of bring himself.
Hamilton.
Yes, thank you. I was blanking on his name. Hamilton. I mean, he didn't obviously perform. I mean, obviously, some of these situations are, well, you overpaid for guys that were probably over the hill at that point. But they've always had good talent, on their teams, and they managed to win one World Series in the last 25 years.
Yeah, don't remind me about that one.
Yeah. That's twice.
Years ago.
That's twice in the last 2 shows we brought that up. So
what are you trying to do to me? You're
I'm sorry.
Insulting Aaron Rodgers, and now it's on to Barry Bonds.
Well, no. See, that's you and I have always been lockstep. Same mindset when it comes to Barry Bonds. So don't you worry about that.
That's true.
I've said that.
And now Rodgers is your favorite quarterback.
Well, I mean, by default, active.
That's
Active. Let's make sure that's a very key point here. But no, you and I are both very much in agreement about Barry Bonds. I think he's the greatest hitter I've ever seen. Obviously, I'm not speaking for players that I haven't, but that includes watching Manny Ramirez and David Ortiz and other great hitters of the past 25, 30 years, Barry Bonds was the best to me. Again, others can disagree. Others can bring up the whole steroid thing, and I'll just sit there and say, well, I don't care. Because I really, I mean, really, I don't. I don't. I mean, it's I've been over my thoughts when it comes to that whole steroid era. I think there was too much, too many parts of baseball were complicit in all of this, from ownership to the league, to the players, to the people who covered the game. You know, to me, that kind of negates a lot of this. Oh my God, I can't believe you were quote unquote cheating. It's like, no, they were. They were doing pretty much what most people did, and is it unfortunate that some players were clean and did not get that advantage? Yes, but there was enough of it going around, and it was such a important time for baseball that I think they all deserve to be in. Just you make a note of it. Don't shy away from the history. You know, that's the point. Don't ignore it. Just don't pretend like it didn't exist, because it did. And I think
it's a museum, right?
Yeah.
Tell the whole story.
Exactly.
And the other thing is, he never tested positive. I know in the Mitchell report, but also in the Mitchell report was David Ortiz. The difference is people love David Ortiz, and Bonds was, man, you think of any confrontational athlete ever. I mean, I know Aaron Rodgers, plays, volley with a lot of these writers. Bonds was like an angry, mean guy. I mean, he wouldn't just say no to interviews. He would berate writers, and he's talked about it recently that he kind of wishes he'd done things differently. Maybe he doesn't even think that, but it may have helped his Hall of Fame career. And again, I always bring up with Bonds, they talk about the home runs. I wish he hadn't set the home run record, because it takes away from the fact that the guy won 8 Gold Gloves, is the greatest defensive left fielder ever, and by the way, stole over 500 bases.
Yeah,
one of the few players in the history of baseball who would have been an elite leadoff hitter or an elite cleanup hitter. There's just not a lot of those guys. It's like him and Willie Mays are like the two guys that come to mind. So yeah, but as far as Ohtani, the East Coast teams have to jump in. Steve Cohen is worth $20 billion and is the biggest Mets fan, so he can sign any check he wants. I'm convinced Steve Cohen's comfortable losing $100 million a year. It's really no dent into his fortune. Yeah. And Ohtani obviously would be a major draw, but I don't know if Ohtani wants to play in New York. Maybe he just wants to stay on the West Coast.
Yeah, and that's again, that's a great point too. The whole being on the West Coast, and that's the thing too. You have I like the idea of the Giants, because that does seem like a very sneaky good spot for him. The draw obviously to San Francisco, but also the stadium, everything about it. It's something that would be, and again, it's a West Coast, so that's an advantage. So yeah, if you're the Red Sox, obviously you're working at a massive disadvantage, except for the fact that you do have money. And, again, if you're a big market team, you got to put your hat in the race somehow. And I don't care what you have to do, what you have to offer. You make every effort to sign this guy, because it's worth it.
Oh, he's a major star anywhere. I mean, other than Anaheim, because that's like now the third team in Southern California behind the Dodgers and the Padres. I mean, because the Padres created an incredible amount of excitement with all their great young players.
Uh-huh.
So we'll have to see where he ends up. If I'm the Angels, don't you trade him? You just don't let him walk for free agency. You've got to trade him at midseason when you're 10 games out of the wild card.
Well, I think that's a decision that you have to make then, not now. Because look, if you're the Angels, you can't. Like, you got to somehow keep this guy, and I just don't think it's going to happen. Especially if he goes out and just has another just stellar season, and his stock is as high as it's going to get right now, and can only get better, I think, this season, because I think he's going to go out and kind of grow and build off this momentum that he has, being by far the best player, pitcher, hitter in the entire World Baseball Classic. It's incredible to me. So.
I feel like Tom Brady, doing what he did at quarterback, and by the way, leading the league in sacks.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that guy's worth something, right?
Yeah, exactly. He turns into like Darrelle Revis in his prime on defense.
Yeah.
It's like okay, great, awesome. He's by far the best player in the sport. Speaking of by far the best player in a particular sport, Connor McDavid. He's again. I get like sweats watching him play high. It's incredible watching him do what he does. And yesterday he became the fourth active player to hit 60 goals in the season with a pair last night, including an overtime winner that again was just one of many highlight reel goals that he's going to score because he's so silky smooth with the puck in his hand, and it's pretty incredible. But he voiced his support towards what the World Baseball Classic did for baseball, and he asked the question, well, when can we get that back for hockey? And look, I think he makes a great point. They used to have the World Cup of Hockey, every few years, obviously, and as much as the Olympics are, as much as the Olympics obviously are a national thing, I think an event like the World Cup of Hockey, which is just all about hockey and also displays the world's best players and the best players against the best players, I think is great for the sport. And something that, like, look, if you want to do something in the middle of the season, I'd be okay with that. I mean, I don't need the All-Star break, John. And if every 3 or 4 years we're replacing All-Star weekend with a 2.5 week World Cup type situation, then you know what? Sign me up, because I want to see that. I want to see Connor McDavid play for Team Canada. I want to see, him on a line with Sidney Crosby and you know what I mean? Like, I want to see that, and I want to see it at an event that it is all about hockey. It's hockey, 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 and you get the entire world's attention on the sport. And I think, look, I think that NHL would be foolish to not think about this at the very least, just because of the success. And I think the positive momentum it's creating for baseball, a sport that desperately needs it. And I'm all for, hockey kind of following suit and going in that direction.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, you can kind of tweak the regular season, do 2.5, 3 weeks. You'd have maybe 8 teams that you'd select from in the United States, Canada, Russia, the Czech Republic, several other countries. Obviously, could be part of this, and you go from there. And the thing about hockey players is, they really believe in national pride. I mean, especially the Canadian players. I mean, the Stanley Cup means so much to them. It means more than any other group of players. I mean, that's like from the time they're in a crib. It's like they're raised to cherish the Stanley Cup. I think it would be fascinating. Again, another state to see Connor McDavid, who, in my opinion, right now, among the 4 major sports, is the best athlete playing currently. I mean, in terms of his dominance, right? Because, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback now, but he's not laps better than Joe Burrow, and Giannis is the best basketball player, but he's not that much better than who's ever number 2, whether it's Luka, pick whoever. Ohtani is a freak, obviously, but Connor McDavid to me is so much better than whoever the second best players in hockey. That he's the most dominant, and you're the hockey guy. From a natural talent standpoint, he's better than Crosby and Ovechkin. Am I right? Just pure natural talent.
I mean, now, yes, but
I'm thinking more skill set. I mean, those guys have accomplished so much, but just pure talent.
Yes, I think so. Because look, Alex Ovechkin may be the best pure goal scorer I've seen in my lifetime.
I agree.
So from that standpoint, I don't think Connor McDavid is better, but overall, I think he's a better player. The hard one is Sidney Crosby, because I'm trying to work through some hatred towards the Penguins and just, whatever about Sidney Crosby. But it's hard to forget how good he was. I mean, he's not what he was in his prime anymore. And that's the tough thing. So very clearly, Connor McDavid is a better player right now. Whether or not he is a better overall player, I'm not going to say that confidently. But to your point, right now, I do believe he is. I mean, he could be entering a peak that far surpasses guys like Crosby. And I think over time, I think we can look back and say, you know what, maybe he was the better player. But I mean, Sidney Crosby just scored his 30th goal of the season at his age. You know what I mean? And that's something that he's done consistently. So it's a good question, John. It really is. And it's not one I can confidently say one way or the other if it's true. So, but right
is he
now.
also more a highlight reel, too, in terms of McDavid? Isn't it more like a wow factor?
Yeah. Oh, sure.
McDavid?
Sure. I
Like,
definitely,
holy
yeah.
crap, what is that?
Well, and that goes into like, okay, so, Tom Brady, obviously, at the quarterback position, mechanically sound. He's not doing anything that looks flashy or you know what I mean? He just does everything right. Sidney Crosby was very much like that. Connor McDavid is too, but he has like 40 more points than the next player. Honestly, that might be exaggerating a little bit. I'm actually gonna look it up real quick before we end the show here,
because off, actually.
It's not. Yeah, it's really not that far off. Like, I mean, I haven't checked the total points here, but yeah, he's 28 points higher than his teammate Leon Draisaitl. That's a funny thing too. It's like they're the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim of the NHL. Right. They have Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, two guys who regularly are at the top of the points leaders or goal scorers or whatever, and they, to their credit though, or at least they're competitive this season and look like a potential a team that could go on a run. But yeah, Connor McDavid 138 points, Leon Draisaitl 110, Nikita Kucherov 100, and then you're down to 96, 93, 90. So like the gap is fairly massive. He has 12
like
more.
Gretzky and Lemieux, right, when they were winning scoring titles.
Oh, sure.
Like just lapping the field, and maybe Shohei Ohtani can go play goal for Edmonton. I'm sure he could figure it out and be better than what they have in net now, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and here's the thing too. It's like, obviously, he's leading in both goals and assists, but 12 goals more than David Pastrnak, who has 48, who's having an incredible season. And we all know how great David Pastrnak is. Well, Connor McDavid is very much better, in a non-disrespectful way to David Pastrnak. So, yeah, it's pretty incredible. But yeah, I'm all for a hockey version of the World Baseball Classic, because I think it would do wonders for a sport that I think has some potential to really grow here. They just happen to always get in front of their way. They trip over their own feet and, kind of hurt their progress in different ways. So, but we'll see.
Is it important, before we wrap, is it important that he move on from Edmonton? I mean, Gretzky, with all the accomplishments at Edmonton with the
I don't think so.
In terms for the growth of the sport, like, if he was playing for, say, Chicago or the Bruins, how much that helped the sport?
It would help, but it would only be a Band-Aid, because you know what? If you want to see the NHL grow, the importance of the Canadian markets are huge, and it's almost more important to get more eyes on those Canadian teams than to get them on the player somewhere else in a bigger market, because your bigger market teams, your Bruins, your Blackhawks, so on and so forth, you have fan bases there. You're going to have a good foundation. I don't think you're going to you need that elsewhere. And, I don't know if it means a player moving from one place to another, but you want to see teams like Edmonton succeed. You want to see that Canadian market grow, and obviously teams be more aware of that. So that's just my opinion. So take it for what it's worth.
They won a cup, right? No, I respect your opinion. Not always on quarterbacks, but when it comes to hockey, I respect your opinion. No, I respect your opinion. Of course I do. But yeah, that does make sense, because how cool would it be if he's able to win a Stanley Cup in Edmonton and be the first Canadian team in now 30 years to win a cup? I mean, the Canadians were the last Canadian team to win a Stanley Cup in 1993. Yeah. And I know, Bruins fans take Canadian fans and Toronto Maple Leaf fans. I don't think they really have anything with Edmonton, although Edmonton did beat them twice in the Cup like 30 plus years ago. But yeah, I think that would be really a cool story. I mean, he's obviously got to be the biggest athlete in Canada, I would assume. And I know for a fact, because I've got my grandnephew who is 12 years old, plays hockey and adores Connor McDavid. Like, I go to see his games, and like half the kids love Connor McDavid. He's that good.
Well, look, I mean, and rightfully so. I mean, you watch the guy play, and if I was a young kid and not a goalie, I'd probably gravitate towards McDavid as well. And it's easy to see. And look, I mean, you're right. Maybe I can't speak for, I'm 36 years old, but I can't speak for those that are maybe about 10 years older than me, 5 to 10 years older than me, that maybe their hatred for the Oilers kind of still resonates a little bit. But yeah, I look, I think obviously it's fun to continue to kind of watch I don't want to see the Canadians or the Maple Leafs win a Stanley Cup, so that's not going to change, and I will never not admit that. But yeah, look, if Edmonton goes out and wins, hopefully not this year, because again, I believe the Bruins are destined for this at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we can talk about tomorrow, because we do not have enough time for me to fit in all my praise for the Bruins right now. So yeah, I think watching Edmonton win a cup with Connor McDavid. Look, Connor McDavid, as winning anything is going to be good for the sport, because he's a very likable player. He's a fun player to watch, even for a casual fan. And I use casual fan in not a negative way, but like, these sport leagues exist and succeed because of casual fans. The NHL would love to have just a casual fan base, or at least add to their already intense. There's people love hockey, and the people who love hockey are always going to watch hockey, but they don't have as much of the, there's nothing on TV, let me check out this hockey game, like we would
Mm-hmm.
do with, say, baseball, or like if your team in the NFL isn't playing, you're going to watch another game. I don't know if we have enough of that in hockey. So, obviously casual fans are good. And I think having players like Connor McDavid, who are very likable, very marketable, if they do the right thing, they can draw in that attention. And that's something that would be good for the sport. So, all right, we're going to have to cut it off here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We will be back tomorrow, Friday, and maybe we will continue this hockey conversation, and perhaps we'll get a little bit more information on the Joel Embiid injury, which could be a big concern for the 76ers. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will talk to you then.